So, continuing our studies on the spiritual colonies, one of the things that we are always very curious about learning, understanding, it's where are they located, right? It would be nice if we could have a GPS that would say, take me to Nasolar. Right? Okay, let's go to Nasolar, right? Or let's go to New Dawn, let's go to Summerland or any other spiritual colonies. There are not many that we have the name that we are familiar with, but let's talk about a little bit in terms of their locations. They normal because we are talking about spiritual colonies that are related to planet Earth, right? Of course, other planets, they will have their spiritual spheres very much like we do have here on planet Earth. So we are talking about the different areas that we may have the location of them, those that are very, very close in terms of energy, in terms of preferences, in terms of inclinations, very, very close to Earth's crust. And the other one that it has um, a similar situation that we will call the lower zones, the umbral that we call as well, lower zones umbral. So we have the lower zones, the medium lower zones, and it is always important for us to remember that even when we are talking about Nasolar, a spiritual colony that because of the book by Andrea Lewis and Francisco Xavier, we are much more familiar with. Andrea Lewis, the spirit, brings us several accounts of the situation of Nasolar. But it's important to know that even Nasolar is located in two different zones. He is located, there is a part of Nasolar that is located, let's say, in the high lower zones, and others there are more to the median zones as well. And then according to how we evolve, according to how our interests are going to be placed, and our possibilities as a spirit, we will be moving each time in terms of a spiritual energy farther away from what it means to be confined very close to Earth's interest. So here we have level 5, art and culture in general and science, universal brotherly love, planet directions, stellar expanse. So then we are talking very, very far away. Perhaps we are already touching bases with another planet that can be nearby, something like that. But just for us to have an idea, because we are here also not talking necessarily only about, physical space. In the first levels is more, related to, we want the proximity with Earth. We want to feel the Earth's energy. We still have too much in common with everything that spirits, incarnate spirits on Earth are living. But then we are talking about, energy levels that it's very hard for us to explain. We lack the possibility of understanding them, from the material perspective, right? And so that's why it is so hard for us to have a clear idea. We can only repeat what we hear from the spirits, and in relation to other levels of evolvement in the spirit realm, we don't have that much. We just know that they do exist, and that what entitles me to be in level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, of course, is the nature, the spiritual nature that I have achieved. So there always is important for us to emphasize that there are no privileges. I cannot just say, I have money, I want my place in, maybe universal brotherly love, level 6. No, this is not the currency that is required from us. What is required is the virtues that we have acquired during our sojourn on planet Earth. Questions, comments? Yeah, you're on mute, Orlando, I guess.
You said, are they free from the aspect of evil and bad thoughts doing harm to others? Have they accomplished that?
Orlando, when we are talking about the lower levels, let's say 1 and 2, perhaps, okay, here, we are talking of people that are, unfortunately, spirits that are still very much more, inclined to life on matter, material things, etc. And very much like on Earth, let's talk about criminals on Earth, okay?
Yes.
There is a law that says that you cannot be a criminal and that you can be punished because you are a criminal. This does not prevent people from committing criminal acts. They try to do that until they are caught, and they have to make amends with the law. It's not different when we are talking about the life of the spirit. Okay, they may have a certain freedom because of their free will, but there will be a time that they will be caught, that the law will say enough is enough. Now you have to be directed to places where you will see how much you have before, and now it's very much like that phrase that we have from the Bible. You have to work with the sweat of your brow when we are talking about the expelling of Adam and Eve from paradise. Okay, you had everything, but you prefer other ways. Okay, go follow your other way. But I have to assure you, this other way that you're choosing for yourself is very, very difficult. So in terms of the spirit life, no one is, let's say, created for evil. No one should be motivated to evil. No one is motivated by the high spirits to practice evil. We have our free will and we decide what we want to do. But rules are rules. We have rules on planet Earth. We have rules of the universe.
Okay, I thank you for that explanation. But this, when you say there will come a time, and I'm holding the spirit world responsible for not, taking care of business more sooner. But that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that we have our free will, and that is what is important when we are talking about the choices that we make. Okay, so let's go to the next one here. Oh, sorry, I don't know why this one is in Portuguese. Let me go to the Nasolar. Okay, to talk about Nasolar. So Nasolar, as we said at the beginning, is a spiritual colony that we are familiar with because there is a spirit that came about in the 50s, late 40s, actually, and it start having communication with the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. There was an agreement between his Chico, as we call him, Chico Xavier, had with his spiritual mentor, Emmanuel, so that this spirit would come more frequently to relay experiences of himself and others that he learned while living in this spiritual colony, Nasolar. There is the book, there is the movie, and we really emphasize that it's very good to, to go through the book, to watch the movie. I mean, you can do that more than one time, because it's not just about the story, it's about a lot of learning that we can gather from there. And because of that, this is what Spiritual Colony that we are more familiar with, because we have all this report from Andrea Lewis. We know that it is located in the lower zones. Like I said, part in a lower zone, part in a medium high zone. Uh, is of average education evolution, like he says, because although the spirits that dwell in there, they are more committed to improving themselves, to learning, they still present a lot, they carry and present a lot of imperfections. So to us, when we read the book, when we watch the movie, an excellent movie that was produced, directed by Wagner Assis, we feel very much like, this is where I want to go. After my passing, right? It would be a good place to be, a good place to go, to continue learning and improving and being active, etc. But as we are showing here, is there are many other places even much more evolved than this one, but is one of the spiritual colonies that we know. Suffering is still can be found there, but its inhabitants, being of intermediary evolution, are more enlightened, so they understand suffering. We know when we read the book, we see how much, for instance, even Andrea Lewis at the beginning, he's suffering. He's missing his family. He wants to come back to Earth to see how his family is doing. In a way, he wants even to interfere with the life of his family. We see other reports of spirits that are received there still in bad shape, like he himself had to go to a period of adaptation, of even treatment, spiritual treatment, so to say, in his spiritual body. So that spiritual position favors nature, which is characterized by beauties and harmonies, non-existence on the inferior planes. So we see, and according to the reports of Andrea Lewis, they have, vegetation, beautiful vegetation, the sunlight, and the waters that he describes, all of that. There is a characteristic of this level of spirits, and their proximity to planet Earth, it's very important as well, because with their prayers, with their understanding, the way they are enlightened already, they are capable of helping in changing the psychosphere of planet Earth, which is something that they want to do. They put a lot of effort to that. Those are the spirits that more commonly, the level of spirits that are there, like even Andrea Lewis and others that he mentions, that can have a lot of affinity with us, and their proximity with us and our way of living can lead us to understand better, there's the whole situation, and in this way provide us with more assistance in this field. Nutrition is rather different from what we have on Earth, but even then, the governor requested 200 instructors to come from a very high sphere in order to propagate new theories about breathing and the absorption of life-giving elements on the from the atmosphere. Its inhabitants feed themselves basically through the inhaling of vital principles existent in the atmosphere by means of the respiration, breathing, and the injection of water mixed with solar, electrical, and magnetic elements. It's like, you know, our vitamin waters. I mean, much better level, okay? And they are divided in ministries, and they have works that help in this sense, and dwellings where people will be receiving or giving assistance, institutions, shelters, everything very much like we have here in terms of habitations on planet Earth. Okay, it's interesting when we read the book about Nasolar, because we see that even a spiritual colony improves. It grows, the inhabitant grows. So before, like the governor mentions in the book, the nourishment were much more dense than it is today. And little by little, he managed to convince, you know, the spirits, listen, you don't need such a, let's say, heavy food, you know, to break the habit, right? Break the habit. Sometimes I think about, you know, our astronauts, right? They have to eat from a little bag mixing with water, and you know, it's not a feast, but it's everything that you need to survive. You don't need anything, and not only to survive, but to provide and to guarantee you health, because a lot of things that we eat, actually, instead of guaranteeing our survival, it makes us, you know, die sooner, right? So, but it's a hard habit to break, right? I mean, I'm used to this particular way of nourishing myself. Now we have to understand that there are other ways, and get used it, even though we don't have our physical body anymore. The cravings do not necessarily come from the physical body. It comes from the mind. It comes from the spirit. When I start craving, you know, I'm not even going to say here. I don't want anyone to start craving and salivating, right? Okay, so we can stop a little bit.
Sarah,
Yes.
what about the aspect of happiness, suffering, and there's another question. Yes, what about those that aspect? Are they free? Are they free from what is known here in this life as carrying the cross, you know, the heavy cross with the way of living? Are they free from that?
Orlando, the thing is, the more we evolve, the more we learn, the more we are willing to learn, at least willing to learn, we will understand that all of this is in our hands. Okay, whether I'm going to suffer or feel happy, it's up to me. It's up to my decisions, the way that I'm going to choose, the path that I'm going to choose for myself. So here on Earth, because we don't see the big picture, we feel much more limited to understand and even to realize that what we live today is the consequence of what we did in the past, the consequence of our choices. But when we are in the spirit world, if we are willing, if we are open to that, we will see that at the end, everything is under my control. And so what I'm going to do next is my choice. And remembering that very much like here on Earth, every choice you make, they have a consequence. So you want to be happy. This is the path to be happy. It's up to you to take it or not. You want to eliminate suffering from your life. This is the path you take. You know, these are the things that we have to consider. Anyone else would like to say?
Yes, have a
Yes.
quick question. On the second item, on the right side, there's a diagram which is unreadable.
Yes, it's just a picture that I put it there. Let's see. I don't know if I can. I don't think I can now unless I end everything augmented. But it's talking more about Earth's atmosphere, okay?
Earth's
And
atmosphere.
how the atmosphere is less and less dense. It's just a little dry. I put it there to say, because here we are talking about the breathing. And even when we relate to that, when we are talking about the, those famous yogis, etc., that live on the top of the Himalayas, we hear that when you are on the top of the Himalayas, that the density of the air is different. It's a much purer air. And some of those yogis actually already live just out of breathing. So that's why I put this here, just to kind of show that the more we elevate, the more, the air can actually have properties to feed us.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Another person that talks about spiritual colonies is Emmanuel Swedenborg. Let me see if I have, no, sorry. This man, he says, the world we go after death is made of several spheres, each one representing a different level of luminosity and happiness. Each one of us will go where our spiritual condition fits best. He wrote that in the 1700s. He was a Swedish man, a scholar at his time, and at the age of 55, he had a vision that 500 or 300 miles away, he saw the city of Stockholm being fire. I think it's Stockholm. He was in Gothenburg, and he saw, which is like, this 300 miles away, and he could see that the city was on fire. And he reported that. Of course, at that time in mid 1700s, or at this time, perhaps it was already, he was 55, perhaps it was already a little late, the beginning of the 1800s, but I'm not so sure. But we're talking here almost 100, I mean, at least his birth, almost 100 years prior to the Spiritist doctrine, okay, to Spiritism, 1857. We are talking about 1756, something like that. And he wrote a book that is even called Heaven and Hell, the same that we have from, the same title that we have from Kardec, Heaven and Hell. And he shows some graphics about that, not different than the one that we just showed to you in terms of, the different levels, 1 to 8, something like that. And this he's actually confirming. And Emmanuel Swedenborg, he is considered to be one of the forerunners of Spiritism, exactly because of that, because he came already and he started presenting a theory, and especially in relation to life after death and how we position ourselves. Another person that talks about spiritual colonies and spiritual life is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I think you are familiar with him. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is very famous for his Sherlock Holmes stories, but he was a very well-known spiritualist slash spiritist practitioner. He was very, very, very much interested in everything that is related to spirits, life after death. There are some books that he wrote on the subject. And he says the following: on the other side of life, the spirits will be placed in 3 different levels according to their evolutionary stage. So here we are presenting this, the opinion of first a man, the scientist of his time that comes and says that. Then, this man that is very, very well-known writer. It was even sire, became a sir, he received the title by the English crown. And all of them, they present similar ideas, right? I mean, if it's not 3, if it's 6, if it's 8, I mean, here they are giving already the idea that there are more levels, and that those levels are related to how we have evolved, or how much we have evolved. You haven't evolved too much, according to him, level 1. A little more, level 2, a little more, level 3. Okay, now we understand in terms of spiritism, there must be much more levels. But overall, the idea is this one. Okay, or it's interesting because when he says level and 3 levels, it takes us to the spirit book when around question 100, there are more questions before and after, where when Kardec presents the spiritual hierarchy, and he places us in 3 levels: the imperfect spirits, right? The superior spirits, and the perfect spirit, as much as we can be perfect in relation, because perfection we only see in God. So it's also 3 evolutionary stages, right? And with subdivisions, although Kardec makes it very clear that this is only, for the didactic purpose, for us to learn this. But you see, even them, we find similarities. Questions, comments? Okay, let's go to the next. Here are some, let me see. How he described that, the Earthbound, that are very much related to worldly affairs, very dense. I think I'm going to choose just to go, the first level. He's talking about the first level here, the Earthbound. Okay, that they very dense, very much related to worldly affairs. Some of them don't even know they are dead, and they attach to people, to objects, to places, and they actively participate in the lives of the incarnates, disturbing and interfering in their lives. Is what we talked about at the level 1 and 2 in that graphic that we showed before. This is more like we will talk about or especially the ones that lives on the Earth's crust, the Earthbound ones. The second level, he named as the normal afterlife. And in their air, houses, environment, occupations, and the sky are sublime an ethereal representation of earth and earthly life. And the normal afterlife, I think he calls that normal because it's what is not that different from what we know. There is a complex society where each one finds work, which best fits their abilities and gives them more satisfaction. So one important thing that he mentions here, you know, it's normal because it's similar to what we are used already on planet Earth in terms of our inhabitants. I mean, of course, we know that this is according to him, and we know that this may vary in other theories. But one thing that is important he mentions here is that the spirits do not stay idle. They have occupations according to their possibilities. And the third level, he says that a spirit has described the third level of family meeting as a plane where happiness, beauty, and peace are among its main characteristics. Everyone is very happy. So you see, it doesn't differ that much from the three levels that we have in the spiritist hierarchy, right? When you reach this level of purity, perfection, this is the main characteristics that we will have. Any comment, question? Andrea Lewis informs us that those communities devoted to goodness are not necessarily situated on more elevated planes or regions. Many of them are encrusted in regions of shadows and pain, representing true oases for the tired travel lost in those territories. So it's in here is where spiritism gives an extra information in a way that makes sense, because here what he's saying is, it's not because we evolve as a spirit that we are going to turn our back to our brothers and sisters that are in need. On the contrary, it seems that the more we evolve, the more we want to help and assist others to evolve as well. So he's saying that even though we presented those the graphic saying, the difference in level, etc., there is nothing that prevents a spiritual colony, of good atmosphere, good people in it, committed people, workers, etc., to be in lower zones. Nasolar is an example, okay? Because this is where they need help. Let's say that we are going to open hospitals only in areas that there are no sick people. What's the purpose of that? So this is the thing here. We need to get closer to places where there are sick people, where there are people in need in this case. So because everything is maintained by their spirits, right, by the level of thoughts of their spirits, they can maintain this kind of oasis that it's the best way for us to picture what we are talking about here. You have desert, and all of a sudden you have a small oasis that there is going to appease and help everyone. Okay?
Yusara?
Yes?
What about the aspect of religions, of a God, of the promise to be resuscitated?
Yes.
How is there anything to that? I mean, how does that work out between the spirit world and the religious aspect?
Orlando, let's talk about somewhat at least a little evolved area, okay? Because when we are talking about Earth's crust, when I talk about first, second level, where people just miss Earth, miss the vices and addictions they had here, want to meddle in people's affairs, this, I mean, is the people that even when they are living here, they couldn't care less about religion, Okay, so let's not talk about those first levels where it's just selfishness and the satisfaction of their whims and passions, right? So let's talk about a spiritual colony already like in the level of Nasolar. Like we said, that is, a very medium level of involvement. There, people will be free to practice their, to continue with their beliefs. But of course, when you have a belief that attests to you that after death is nothing, and you see yourself after death living, you have to agree with me that you have to reconsider your positions or the positions of your beliefs. But having said that, we know that there will be even spiritual colonies that will be more directed and guided by the Catholic faith, by the Jewish faith, by the Muslim faith, so that at first people that can't come there with their convictions, they are not going to feel that much displaced. And so the thing is, the more we evolve, like we said, the closer all the beliefs are going to be. And if you remember well, I think level 6, right, we were talking about universal brotherly love. So that is going to be the religion when all the religions finally understand that we are in the same path. I think we still have time for a little bit more of slides. Let's go here. What would be the main characteristics of colonies and spiritual nuclei devoted to goodness? People are gathered in groups or families according to mutual affinity or common interests. In this case, it can be religion, like Orlando just mentioned. Okay, we were, a very religious group in a particular faith, and I still feel comfortable talking about this belief or living among people that share and understand my background, right? There is a hierarchy of power or levels of authority established by intellectual and moral ascendancy. The two wings of evolvement, right? It's not because I'm friends with Jesus, okay, that I'm going to be entitled a place in heaven that I have not personal marriage to fulfill. So there is nothing to do with that. I'm sure that when we return to spirit realm, and if we look around, we will see that people that had very humble positions on earth will be perhaps some of those that will have the highest position on those spiritual colonies. Again, not to blame the powerful and the wealthy, but just to say that sometimes because they can find too much satisfaction in this area, they don't seek for the spirit or to develop that much spiritual area. So and we can find that even in people that have nothing, and so this is always important for us to emphasize as well. So here has nothing to do with that. And there is even one situation that Chico Xavier asked a question to his spiritual mentor Emmanuel, saying, Emmanuel, what do you think of these people that go through, past life regressions to find out that they were, kings and queens and princes and all, those important people from the past? Can this be true? And Emmanuel, I guess, in a good humor, replied to him, yes, it is true, because the humble are already in a much better place than planet Earth. So again, it has nothing to do with position. It is a heterogeneous society in terms of knowledge and morality, where even on the lower levels, the studies, the work, and the activities are committed to doing good. So everything is based on morality, okay? And we will find joy in that, in learning and understanding, and having our answers replied, where we will have more understanding about spiritual life, our life, the universe, and we'll be living among people who have similar inclinations in the sense of trying to promote good in themselves. The characteristics, before we talked about the characteristics of their organization, now about their inhabitants. They do good in any activity. They are free to transit to the lower spheres and to the colony's limits. There is mental communication, but the spoken word can be still used. Locomotion by levitation or by the use of legs and feet. And there are also other means of transportation, such as vehicles or machines. So again, the main objective, the main thing is we try to do good at all the times. We do not have any restriction or restrictions, better saying, restrictions to go to lower spheres. Of course, higher spheres can be more difficult, but not impossible. We will mostly communicate through mental communication. So it's when we look to, oh, I know what you're thinking, like, there's communion of thoughts, but it doesn't mean that we cannot use words. And the same thing in terms of walking or flying. I, for one, vote for fly, even in terms of other vehicles or machines. So it's this is what is waiting for us. And with all this knowledge, the question is, we still have time. It's not a matter of quantity, the parable of the last workers. It's a matter of quality of learning. Once I learn, if it took me 50 years or 5 months, lucky you that took only 5 months to take a turn in your life. This is what happens, so that's why it's very important when we talk about that in the Spiritism, because there is no age, there is no excuse for people who are over 50s or 60s to come and say, oh, it's too late in life for me. Only if you're lazy. Okay. Otherwise, you have 1 year to live. In 1 year, you can take a turn in your life. It doesn't matter. So, and this is what we want in terms of, achieving, being rid of suffering, having peace, having happiness.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
How about the aspect of love? That won't be. You don't have to worry about getting your heart broken in love, huh?
No, Orlando, because we will not be deceived by people like we are here. And again, it's so hard for us to talk about love because, like we normally say, and I love the idea that the Greeks, I think they have 7 different words to talk about love. And I mean, we have just one and we put everything in the same container, right? when we talk about physical love, when we talk about passionate love, when we're talking about one night stand love, when we are talking about being 50 years together in a relationship. So everything is love, right? So in this, what we understand in terms of spiritual life is that the more we grow, the more we will understand love. Love is going to be more intense and fulfilling, because now there is always this thing, you live with someone that you love and apparently love you today, tomorrow they change their mind and they leave you behind. Okay, so there, when you love, it's not I love you because you're young, because you're pretty, because you're powerful, because you have money, because you are a movie star, or because you know you're the creator of something. No, I love you with the soul, because there is a communion of affinity of things, and those kind of loves, they do not perish. More than that, it's very hard for us to know and to understand. Okay, so this is overall what we understand about love in the spiritual life.
So then I, as a romantic, now I spend almost every day trying to heal broken hearts. So I guess I don't have a position. I won't have a position on regarding being a romantic.
I hope you don't, okay? Because I don't want to be a broken heart spirit, okay? I mean, but like we said before, Orlando, this is according to how we evolve in our spiritual position. So far, we are unfortunately not close to that situation yet, even in the spirit realm. We only have to read the book Nasolar to see how much André Luiz was affected, impacted, jealous about learning that his wife had married again. And we are talking about André Luiz, the man, the spirit that dictated the books. And of course he grew, of course he was able to detach later on, but at first he was really not happy. Right? So the more we evolve, the less we will be. And this is good because, you know, like today that sometimes you say, oh my God, but I love so many people. I feel so much for so many people. And sometimes we feel even uncomfortable with that because you say, how come I can love more than 1, 2, 3, 5 different persons? But we are not talking about physical love. We are talking about the love of the soul when we have affinity with other people. So the more we grow, the more people we may love. We can fall in love with, and we should fall in love with everyone and each and every one. Okay, you're my brother, you're my sister. I love you the same.